I'd like to call the board to order. This is the Texas Board of Medical Radiologic Technology. It is 9:01 a.m. on February 2nd, 2024.
All right.
We'll start with the roll call.
And Amy, before you do that, if you will, or Dr. Khan, just read the statement about the meeting being open, proceeding by video, etc., just for the purpose of the record, and so everyone in the public understands how it will be going today.
All right. This meeting will be open to the public at the above location and will proceed by video conference as allowed under Texas Government Code Section 155.127. The location above, which is 1801 Congress Avenue, number 9900, above shall have two-way audio video communication with each of the other locations during the meeting. The presiding officer of the board will be physically present at the location and room listed above.
Okay. All right, and proceeding to agenda item number 1, which is call to order and roll call. I will call roll. Dr. Faraz Khan.
Present.
Dr. Nicholas Beckman. Not present yet. Jennifer Brandt, MRT.
Present.
Reagan Landreth.
Here.
Melanie Shannon Lutz, MRT. Ms. Lutz, are you present? Ms. Lutz, can you hear us? We'll circle back.
Yeah.
Okay. We do see her on camera, but we're not in audio connection yet. Scott Morin, MRT.
Here.
Shyla Parker.
Present.
Thank you. Lucy Cisnega.
Present.
And Ms. Carol Waddell, MRT.
Here.
All right, and checking in with Ms. Lutz again, are you able to hear us and mark yourself as present? Okay.
She still doesn't hear us. Maybe someone in IT could reach out.
Yeah.
IT is working with her.
Thank you so much.
And we do have a quorum, even with Ms. Lutz's difficulties, so we can go ahead and, Amy, if you want to go ahead and begin now and move on through the agenda, or Dr. Khan, and call your items, and I think we'll be at number 2 now, Dr. Khan.
Okay, so item number 2 is the board member report. Dr. Khan, if you'd like to share anything with the board members.
I do not have anything to add to the board member report. Do any of the other board members have anything to comment on? All right, very good. Then we will move on to item number 3, which is executive director report.
Yes, and I will go ahead and be doing that in Mr. Carlton's place this morning. It's going to be fairly short. There it shows internal audit update on that, and the only update is we have retained an internal auditor. I believe they will be looking at licensure in this coming year. Legislatively, we're just in between sessions. We haven't heard any interim hearings yet, so we really have nothing to report on that. And the budget update, that is the biggest item going on right now, from the respect that we are working on our LAR, legislative appropriation request. Mr. Carlton, executive team, that includes Joey, our chief financial officer, and Chris, Dr. Brett, and a few others are working on that, Tori Sloan. So I think what I'll do at this point is, just from the financial perspective, is turn it over to Joey Estrada. He can give you an update on our overall budget status right now, and if there's anything you'd like to add on the LAR, Joey, feel free.
Thank you, Scott. Good morning, board members. So I'll be brief as well. So real quick with our budget update, just wanted to let everybody know that I did add a section to the budget report on page 2. I kind of condensed our budget information into a one-pager that highlights the main points. So that should be a lot easier to read than the big financial statement that proceeds on page 5 that gives the full scope of the agency's budget outlook. So overall, through the end of December, our budget execution is at 90%. Our revenue collections were just over 11 million, and we are projecting to collect the maximum revenues that we did in the preceding fiscal year, which is around 39 million. So we should be collecting about 40 million. That's what I'm projecting for us to collect so far. And then also on page 15, I did update our financial notes, which highlights fiscal year 2023. That provides information on the major accounts that had a variance of 10% greater or less. And that just provided some context as to why those accounts had such a big variance. And then finally, real quick, on our new FTEs that the legislators authorized this last session, they granted us 35.5 additional FTEs. We've hired about 30 of those FTEs, and the remaining are either posted or they're in a draft to be posted soon. So everything's going great so far from the budget perspective. And then in regards to the LAR, so that LAR will be submitted sometime this summer, and we'll start the whole process again. So kind of feels like we just ended that this prior August and we're starting all over again. So, pending any questions, I'll hand it back to you, Scott.
All right, unless there are any questions, I believe we can go ahead and Dr. Khan, you may consider, continue with your agenda. Note for the record, Amy, that Dr. Beckman has arrived and it's about 9:08. And Dr. Beckman, you can hear us and see us?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay,
Sorry
and
for
Dr.
being late.
Beckman is now present. So again, we will just go ahead and continue on. Thank you, Dr. Khan.
Thank you. We will proceed on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is Medical Director Report.
Yes, good morning, board members. I actually will make this very brief. There's nothing to report. We are doing well with expert panelists, and I'll turn it back over to Scott.
Thank you so much. We will move on to item number 5, which is pending litigation.
Again, I will do that. And as with the other reports so far this morning, this one's going to be short and sweet. As I always say to y'all, thank you very much. You're not getting us sued. I can't say the same for the medical board. That seems to keep us busy. But in all seriousness, we've got some substantial evidence reviews going through on board orders. Nothing in particular that's really out of the ordinary. We have a couple of physicians who are appealing. They were the board sanction was affirmed in the appeals court. They filed appeals to the Texas Supreme Court. We don't think they're going to be going anywhere, but we will watch those just to see. But other than that, again, not much at all happening on the litigation front, just really pretty much routine stuff. So with that, I will give it back to you, Dr. Khan.
And if I could please just jump in. I'm sorry, Dr. Khan. Ms. Lutz, are you able to hear us now?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll put on the record that you are in attendance for purposes of the quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to item number 6, which is Texas Physician Health Program. Dr. Doyle.
Hi, good morning. For item 6A, there are no new referrals for you to consider. We do have a report in your packet. There should be one case review that is a case that's already been emergently referred. If you have questions about that case or about either of the reports, Mr. Bernardo and I can answer any questions you have, but no action is required today.
Any questions from the board members? All right, thank you so much. All right, we will move on to item number 7, which is licensure applicants.
Yes, good morning. We have 5 applicants that will be appearing today. Our first applicant is applicant number 2586. This is an NCT applicant that was referred to the committee by the executive director. This applicant was referred due to the criminal history and failure to report her complete arrest history. There are 7 arrests from 2005 to 2018. The last arrest in 2018 was for theft of property greater than or equal to 2,500, less than 30,000. It was a state jail felony. Found guilty, disposition date in July of 2022, 10 years probation. The applicant may seek early termination of probation after 5 years have been completed. So the applicant is currently on probation. Board staff did receive a statement from the probation officer in December of 2023 that indicated that the applicant was placed on a 10-year term of deferred adjudication in January of 2022, and as of the date of the letter, the applicant maintained compliance with the terms of the supervision. The applicant did answer yes to our arrest criminal history questions on the application. However, when submitting the statement regarding how many arrests the applicant was reporting, she indicated all of them except for 1 arrest in 2007 for disorderly conduct, which was a misdemeanor. When asked why she failed to report her complete arrest history, the applicant indicated that that incident was from the same incident in 2005 of a disorderly conduct charge. When asked what her practice plans are if issued an NCT permit, the applicant indicated that she's currently a medical assistant at Texas Med Clinic. She plans to enroll at Alamo College in the spring of 2024 and complete any prerequisite courses before applying for the radiology program the following fall term. Obtaining the NCT permit would allow the applicant to shoot x-rays at Texas Med Clinic. Currently, they only have 2 NCTs at the location, and as a shift leader, one of her responsibilities is to inform any patient that's coming into the facility for an injury that they don't have an NCT on staff, and protocols to send a patient to one of the sister clinics after staff is triaged and any x-rays have been ordered. And then also board staff received 2 letters of recommendation for this applicant. So applicant number 2586, if you are present, if you could please unmute yourself.
I'm present, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have an opening statement, you can say that at this time. If not, that's fine. The board members will just move forward with asking you questions regarding your application, okay?
Okay, thank you so much for taking the time out of y'all's day for this. I really appreciate it.
Did you have an opening statement, or would you just want to move forward with the board members asking you questions?
Just ask the questions. I'm already so nervous.
Okay, thank you. Board members?
Sure. I saw that a lot of your previous arrests revolved around theft, most of which were more than 10 years ago, but you did have one episode that was in 2018. Can you talk about that specific episode, please?
So that I have to look at it because my brain does not choose to go back to that. But in 2018, I was working at a restaurant, and the person that I was with, my main responsibility at the end of the night was to drop deposits off. And I was going through a really bad relationship, and whenever I left the job at the end of the night to go drop off the deposits, we got into an argument and he took my car. My deposits were in that car, and I failed to report that to my manager. And I was scared at the time, so I didn't report it. And of course, that fell back on me. It was my responsibility, and I didn't tell him. So I ended up getting in trouble for it. And nobody else was going to own up to that. That was solely my responsibility to report that, and I failed to. The only thing I did report was the altercation at a later date, but that's what started the whole process of me getting in trouble for this incident.
So in that the car was taken by your boyfriend. Did he were those receipts stolen, or were they just lost for a bit and then recovered?
No, they were stolen.
Sorry, deposited.
Yeah, so I had tried to get it back and I couldn't. It was 2 other people and nobody owned up to it. And by the time I was speaking to a detective, it was already at that point where there was going to be charges filed. So.
And are you still you're still on probation for that incident, correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And any other probation?
I've
Or
had
just-
probation in the past and I've completed it. I've always been in compliance. I've never had any issues complying with anything like that.
And when's the probation to be completed? Your current-
If I can get off, I can, get off in 5 years. So it's already been a few years. I'm still doing community service for it and paying fines, but I'm eligible once those are taken care of at the 5-year mark. But in full, it's 10 years, but I can get off early. That was part of the agreement, was that I can apply to get off early.
I have a question for Ms. Reyes.
Yes, ma'am.
So is your current employer aware of these past charges and all, and that you're on probation?
Yes. So during my interview process, I was upfront with everything. My direct supervisor here knows all about it. So I've been very open and honest as much as I can. And then once we get to the one that it looks like I failed to document on my paperwork, I will have an answer for that as well.
And so what, you're planning on attending X-ray school? Is that your long-term goals?
It is, yes. I really enjoyed the class whenever Texas Med Clinic put me through their course here. I thought it was very, just hands-on. I like dealing with the patients and just getting that time with them. As a medical assistant, we triage and we kind of just rush in there, rush out. The doctor sees them, but I like being able to see the images, and it was very informative, and just so many different things that you can see on an X-ray. And obviously, there's more that you can learn. There's always something you can learn, and I'm all for learning. Like I, see people come in here that are radiology techs, and they're just like, oh yeah, there's so many things that you can do, and they're so encouraging, and it's always so great to hear about.
So will the school that you're applying to, will it be an issue that you're on probation to get into school? Or have you looked into that yet?
So as long as I am honest with the application process, or during the application process, it shouldn't be an issue. But going through this process will definitely, I will get a feel for what to expect in the next steps. So I've put it off going through the coursework because I've already been so discouraged, and this has already been such a long process for me, and just maturing through these years and realizing all the things that have happened, and finding something that I really enjoy. It's just hopefully I can move forward, and this will be a good stepping stone for me to go and go through that whole radiology process. And I'm hoping, I'm really hoping that there's no other instances where it'll prevent me from, going through the coursework and moving on into something that I really like to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board members?
I did have one just because she alluded to it. You said there was an explanation for the one incident that you had failed to report.
Oh, yes, ma'am. So the first incident that I documented was a disorderly conduct when I was 17. It was at a movie theater. During that time, I did not live at home. And I actually asked my mom about it. And I was like, do you remember anything about this? Because the timing of it, I obviously was not, in the right state of mind at that age. And she goes, no, you went to court. You did community service. And then I don't think I went to the next court date. And whenever, I think it was the following year, I went to go see my brother who was incarcerated. That's the date that I got arrested that you see as an arrest date. It's an added date. And I was released that same day. And there's a document in there from the jail that I got stating that it was I was arrested and released that same day. And that was from the 2005 disorderly conduct. That was a result of that. And I'm not sure why it shows differently, but it resulted from that incident.
Any other questions from the board members? Do any of the board members want to forward a resolution, or do we need to go to executive session?
You don't have to go into executive session if you don't want to. If a member wants to make a motion, you can, and you can just vote or even discuss it here. So it's entirely up to your panel, or your committee, I should say, to decide whether or not they need to do that, Dr. Khan.
So granting full licensure with the stipulation that there is completion of the remaining parole terms that the licensee has. Is that a feasible option, just to make the recommendation for full licensure with contingent on completion of the parole terms?
Well, I think you need to, be very clear on that, doctor. It's probation, which is a little bit different than parole. So,
sorry.
But when you said contingent upon, I mean, that makes it sound like you have to complete it in order to get it. Or do you mean go ahead and grant her registration as a non-certified tech? And, you can condition that upon completion of her probation. You could do that as an order, or you could just simply register her. And then if there is a violation of probation, she's going to go back into court or get called in front of the judge. And she might, at that point, theoretically even have to go serve a sentence. So we would get notice either way. So I don't know if that's necessary in this case to put that condition upon her, but it's up to you. And Yvette and Grace, I'm certainly open to any thoughts you may have on Dr. Beckman's question.
Yeah, Dr. Beckman, it sounds like you could either approve so that we would issue the NCT permit next week to this applicant. And as Mr. Freshour was saying, if she were not to be compliant under the terms of her probation, that the board receive notification through that process, and then action could be taken at that time. Or you could approve this applicant for the NCT permit under an agreed order, which would indicate that in the agreed order, it would indicate that she would need to comply with the terms of her probation. But that agreed order is disciplinary and it's public on the profile. Or the other extreme option is to deny the NCT permit entirely. So that's roughly your kind of three most common outcomes in this type of scenario. But Yvette, Scott, if I'm missing any other type of option that they also have available, and please feel free to chime in.
No, I think that covers it.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think an agreed order would be option. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know what the other board members think, but I wouldn't go the agreed orders route.
I agree with Shannon. I feel like that's probably excessive in this and creates a lot of paperwork and everything for both her and the staff. The fact that we would be notified if there were any probation violations, and obviously this would all come before us again. I'm fine with that, and I really feel like this young lady is seeing the error of her ways when she was younger and doing crazy younger things that she shouldn't have. And the letters of recommendation that she had in her file were excellent. The people that see her and work with her seem to have great confidence in her. So I'm okay with granting her NCT, and hopefully she'll go on and become an RT.
And I guess then, Dr. Khan, do you want to see if one of your board members perhaps may want to make a motion?
I would move that we grant Vanessa Reyes her licensure as a NCT.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion to grant NCT licensure from Ms. Waddell and seconded by Dr. Beckman. It's a close tie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, the motion to grant licensure as NCT passes.
Thank you so much.
Applicant 2586, you'll receive a separate email that contains a separate Teams meeting link that you can leave this meeting and click on that one to join, where board staff will be available to answer any questions that you had regarding the motion that you just heard and what to expect with your licensure application moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. The second applicant that we have is applicant number 2580. This is also an NCT applicant who is appealing the executive director determination. This applicant was scheduled to appear at the September 22nd, 2023 board meeting, but did not attend. And so the decision was to defer so the applicant could attend this board meeting. The applicant has criminal history, falsification, and active practice issues as part of her appeal. In April of 1999, the applicant was arrested for a misdemeanor Class B theft of property charge that resulted in 24 months of probation, and the case was dismissed in August of 2001. The applicant answered no to all the licensure application questions regarding arrest and criminal history, and board staff discovered the 1999 arrest when reviewing the DPS FBI fingerprint report. And when asked why the applicant failed to disclose this arrest, it was indicated that they had forgotten about it. So because the criminal history was not reported per authorization from the board to the licensure manager, she was offered the option to withdraw and reapply. With regards to the active practice, the applicant completed Remington College's NCT certificate program in August of 2016. She hasn't practiced as an NCT and has been working as a medical assistant at Bone and Joint in Fort Worth since 2021. When asked what her practice plans are if issued the NCT permit, she indicated that she's been working with Bone and Joint since 2021, and she's been given the opportunity to X-ray, and she plans to stay there as long as possible. She did not provide any documentation for continuing education credits and no other NCT education other than the program that she completed in August of 2016. So because the applicant had not actively practiced since 2016, which was approximately 6 years from the date of the application, staff recommended that she either enroll and successfully complete a TMB-approved NCT program or be referred to the licensure committee. And this is based on the active practice remedy matrix provided by the board. The applicant, upon receiving this notification regarding the withdraw and reapply for the failure to report the criminal history and the active practice remedy, is appealing this, indicating the reason that she hasn't worked in the field or practiced or continued education in this field was due to the fact that when she first got the NCT completion certificate, she wasn't able to find a job due to the lack of experience. She's kept up with her medical assistant education, and she was unaware X-rays were a separate certification given that the NCT and medical assistant were in the same program for her. The appeal statement originally did not address if she was appealing the withdraw and reapply, so board staff clarified that, and the applicant is appealing both determinations. So applicant number 2580, if you are present and can unmute yourself, please.
I'm here.
Yes, thank you. If you have an opening statement, you can say that at this time. If not, then the board members will just move forward with asking you questions regarding your licensure application.
Okay, I do want to say something. Like she said, I wasn't aware that I had to have continuing education for my NCT. If I would have known, I would have done it with my CCMA certification every 2 years. So I would have continued with that as well. And as far as the criminal background, back in when it was dismissed, they had said it was expunged. So I thought that meant that they was going to be dismissed to where it wouldn't show up on my record. And as I got older and time went on, I had a job run a criminal background, and it didn't come up. So I thought that it was just not, it would come up again. So I didn't think it was going to be something that would be an issue, and I thought it would be okay to answer to no when they asked about the criminal background. And that is all.
Board members, questions?
So you've been taking radiographs since you started your job with this orthopedic clinic in 2021?
No, I haven't been able to because I don't have my certificate, but they do x-rays because it's a orthopedic clinic. And when I found out that I had it and it was part of my programming, is when I tried to do it and they told me, well, you need to, show proof that you have it. So I went through the process, calling the school and asking them for the paperwork. And that's how I'm here now, finding out that after I had enrolled or hear from you guys is when I found out that I had to have continuing education on that. Before that, I wasn't aware of that. So as of now, no, I'm not taking x-rays because I'm not certified to do so at this time.
So you have CME in as a medical assistant, is that what you're saying, but not as a an NCT?
Correct.
And
so outside of the NCT program back in 2016, you don't have any experience whatsoever with taking x-rays, is that correct?
Correct. Other than what I have learned here, by the other NCTs telling me and showing me, but other than that, no other experience.
How many NCTs are employed where you are right now?
As of right now, 1, 2, I want to say about maybe 4 or 5.
Okay.
When you went through the NCT program, was it not explained to you about the continuing education that will be required of you for this licensure?
No, it was not.
And just one other question. Why did you choose not to show up at the last meeting?
Well, as of right now, I'm at work and I was rooming a patient and got stuck with the patient, rooming them and, doing my procedures, and time went on and I didn't realize it was past the time of the meeting.
Okay.
So the program that you went through was a combination medical assistant and NCT?
Yes, ma'am.
And they don't, I'm just baffled that they're running a program, but they're not explaining to techs how to go about getting their license with the state of Texas and the requirements.
And sorry, me as well, because every 2 years I get an email saying that I have to take my course again to get my CCMA certified, but I've never gone one for NCT. So I don't know if that it was something I had to do on my own or was part of that. So that's another reason I wasn't aware that that was separately.
Are there any RTs that work where you work, or is it just NCTs?
When I first started, there was 2, but one of them retired and the other one quit. So as of right now, there's only NCTs.
Do you ever work as by yourself in the facility?
No, it's a busy clinic. So there's always there's 7 of us. There's about 7, 8 doctors in the clinic. So there's always MA per doctor, and then we have a float. So it would be impossible for me to work by myself.
What about the NCTs? Is there only one, or are there more on staff at one?
There's 2 that are full-time NCTs, and that's what they do all day. And then the rest of us is whenever, because, you know, we're busy because it's a orthopedic clinic. So they would like for us to have that ability to be able to x-rays when we get backed up.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board members? Discussion?
So what would our options be as far as like a supervised temporary license?
Right.
Is that an option?
So this applicant is an appeal, so the board will need to decide whether to grant the appeal or deny the appeal. If you deny the appeal, then you're addressing the falsification issue. If you feel that withdraw and reapply to correct the application questions should still stand. And then also the active practice option. So if you look at the matrix that is included in Laserfish for you to reference for NCTs, up to 3 years, they could do the review course, which is basically redoing a board-approved NCT program again, or complete 12 hours of CEs and shadow for 3 months. And if they've been out 3 to 5 years, then it's again, they could redo the program or CEs, but shadow for 6 months. If it's greater than 5 years, the matrix has been just to kind of refer to the committee. So really when it's, in this case, the applicant has been out approximately 7 years, I believe it was, 6 years from the date of application. Really, it's what the board wants to decide after they've, heard the applicant, asked any questions. Really, it's up to you if you feel like shadowing for a certain amount of time. There is not a supervised temporary license that we do for NCTs as we do for the other rad tech types. It has been more so the shadowing aspect, but it is open to what you feel is appropriate to remedy this applicant's active practice issue.
So I have a question. If we deny the appeal, how long does she have to reapply again from the date that we deny?
Typically for our withdraw and reapply applicants of all of our license types, we would like them to do that within approximately a week after notifying board staff that they are accepting the WAR, and just that's so that we can make sure it doesn't get lost and forgotten through the cracks. So they just go online as they did the first time, answer the application questions, the ones that they answered the first time, answer them correctly, pay the online application fee again. In this case, since it's an NCT applicant, that's a $60 application fee. And then that new application with the corrected answers will be assigned to the same licensure analyst. So it's a much quicker process than when they submit for an initial application for the first time, because we'll use the same documents from the current application. So as long as everything's updated, they'll go to the same analyst, and then that will be the extent of the withdraw and reapply process. The remedy of the active practice will obviously be the longer portion if you choose to deny the appeal.
And again, I think you can probably split these. And I think Ms. Underborn said that you could grant the appeal and say, we're not going to worry about a falsification from 1999, but you still have to do your active practice remedy. Or you can make her reapply, answer yes, but then she's still going to have to address the active practice issue. So even if you do a WAR, she answers the question correctly, she's still going to have to do whatever you ask her to do to remedy the active practice as well. So, I mean, that you've got kind of two interrelated issues, but they can also be separated. You could say, don't worry about the falsification. You've explained it. You did your Form R when it was called. So you don't have to pay again. We're going to consider it remedied, but you still the falsification remedied, but you still have the whole active practice issue.
Well, then I motion that we grant the appeal, so forego the falsification act and focus on the active practice, how to remedy that.
Okay.
I second that motion.
So
Well,
should
we'll
we,
need
can
to
you shadow or?
Yeah, we'll need to specify as part of the motion what mechanism you want to use to remedy the active practice. I think the cleanest thing, since we have a motion and a second, but the motion doesn't specify. The cleanest thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Freshour, would probably be to withdraw that motion. Let's you can discuss what options you have to remedy the active practice and then re-urge the motion with more specificity.
Right.
Okay.
So would Ms. Parker, are you going to withdraw your motion, and will your second to that agree to the withdrawal?
Okay, yes, I withdraw my motion.
In the second, Ms.
I withdraw my
Okay.
second motion.
Okay.
Okay.
So could we
And
do where she shadowed for the normal amount of time that's recommended, and then also during that time get her continuing education credits to where they were current? Could we put those two together?
Let me just get it right, Ms. Unterborn. So the options on the last were 6 months of shadowing prior to the, and then 12 CEs, is that correct?
Yes, that is the recommendation in the over 3 years but under 5 years aspect of the matrix is what is indicated as 12 hours of CEs and shadowing for 6 months.
Okay. Okay. Then,
And then what is the actual definition of shadowing? Does that just mean they work side by side with someone who is licensed?
Observing, not touching, not pushing any buttons, just literally just observing and watching and shadowing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they could, position and all that, but no pushing of the button to take the x-rays.
I mean, my understanding is they're hands off. They're just observing. If that's a little too strict, then please correct me, board members. But I was under the impression that shadowing is observing, just kind of watching, not having any hands-on interaction during this time. But please correct me, board members, if that's a bit strict.
As opposed to like what we offer for the LMRTs and the MRTs where they are supervised, right? Like they don't.
That's a supervised permit, so they are actually, positioning, pushing buttons, but they're under the supervision of a licensed practitioner. So it is different.
Ms. Brandt, you have your hand up.
Yep. How long is an NCT program?
It's the 120 hours. And it's broken down based on radiation safety and then certain amount of hours and the components. I don't have that memorized off the top of my head. My apologies. But we recommend that they complete a TMB board approved NCT program. So we have already looked at the application of this program, verified that it's compliant with the criteria outlined in board rule, so that they are meeting what the board rules indicate need to be completed as part of that program.
Yeah. So my only concern is that it's now, 8 years or almost 8 years since she completed the program. And I mean, if she didn't know that she needed continuing education to keep up her certification, like what other information does she not have? And so I almost think it would be best for her to just have to repeat the program.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I kind of I agree that this after completing training, there's been after completing about 120 hours of education, 7 years ago. There's been no active involvement in radiology, it sounds like. So, you know, I would be, I think that there needs to be extensive re-education, either like through the repeating of the program or very, very close supervision, you know, via shadowing or something. But I think there's been a long lapse here, and there was no active. It would be different if there was practice for 10 years and then there was a lapse of 7 years, but there was like no practice after the education was completed.
Mr. Moran, your hand's up.
Yes, I would agree with Mrs. Brown. I think going back and completing the programs is the best route to go on this one.
Okay. If that is the case, would you like to also see verification of CE hours submitted to board staff in addition to a certificate of completion of an NCT program, if that were the case?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you required to have CME hours if you complete the program? I mean, if you complete the program, doesn't that kind of render the CME hours kind of moot? Going forward, she would need CME hours, but I don't think she needs to do CME hours on top of the program if that's not the typical.
For licensure applicants, typically we only ask for verification of CEs if there is an active practice issue. So if they are a recent graduate, completed a accredited program or completed an NCT program, then we don't ask for proof of CEs. But as the board in this particular applicant circumstance, given the timeout and any concerns that are raised by board members, it is up to you what you would like to indicate in the motion as what she needs to complete to remedy this active practice issue.
If we decide to have her go through the program again, I don't think it's necessary to do the CEUs on top of that, because the program, it's 120 hours. It should take care of everything. Otherwise, why do the program?
I agree.
With the simplest thing, if we're in agreement, then it would just be to reject the applicant's like appeal, correct? If we all agree that the requirement is to go through the program again.
From what I've gathered from y'all's discussion, it sounds like that it's a possibility to grant the appeal of the withdraw and reapply, however, deny the appeal of the active practice remedy and have the applicant complete a TMB board approved NCT program as the remedy. And then upon board receipt of that program's completion, that they would then be placed on our next licensing list to be issued that NCT permit. That sound about right?
That is right.
Okay.
What Grace said.
Yeah. So
Now,
what you would,
I know, right? Can we just?
yeah. So what you would do, Ms. Parker, is if you wanted to again be the movement, you could move to grant the appeal in part related to the falsification, deny the appeal related to active practice, and that the remedy for the active practice would be the attendance of a board-approved NCT program.
Got it. Okay. So I would like to motion that we grant in part the appeal for the falsification or application and deny the appeal for active practice. And the way to remedy that is for her to attend a board certified NCT program, complete a board certified NCT program.
And then upon completion of that program and board's receipt of, we can move forward with putting her on the licensing list for that NCT permit. There's no requirement to have her attend again. We can just move forward with licensing her, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yes. So do I need to say that?
No, that's
Okay.
just clarification for my board staff so that we
Yeah, that's
know how to
more
operationally
internal
handle it.
process. That's more
Okay.
process internally.
Thank you.
I'll second that
the
motion.
I'm sorry, who
Yes.
seconded?
Ms. Brandt seconded the motion.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, so we have a motion from Ms. Parker, which states that we are partially granting the appeal in regards to the falsification, but denying the appeal as far as the active practice, with the remedy being completion of a board certified program, NCT program for the applicant. Did I state it correctly?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies. For internal process, is there a timeline that she needs to complete this NCT program? Because her application is expired. And again, my apologies for not bringing this up. She applied on December 1st, 2022. Applications are good for 1 calendar year, so that expired December 1st, 2023. However, we extended the expiration to allow the applicant the opportunity to appear at the board meeting today. So is there a deadline that you would like to see that she has to complete this? And if it is not completed by this, then her application will be considered withdrawn and expired.
Okay. Do we normally do a year, or is there a normal amount of time?
For other boards that are asking an applicant to complete something, it can range anywhere from 3 months to 6 months. Typically 6 months is a reasonable time period for an applicant to participate in some sort of remedy, but it is up to the board how much time you want to allow this individual to enroll in the program and complete it.
I would say 6 months is adequate.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Beckman, did you have something?
I was just going to suggest a year, just because we're asking them to complete a training program. While it is only 120 hours, I mean, may have to disperse it over several months, if they're able to do that. And, people, because of children and other various things, there are certain times a year that may be more advantageous to them versus others. So by giving them an entire calendar year, that allows them to pick a time that might be more feasible for them to complete this task.
I would
If
say
I'm not
a year.
mistaken, with the NCT programs, they're pretty set on the time frame they give them to complete them. I mean, I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, they don't allow them to spread it out over a year, do they?
Typically what we see from the applications, it's a 3-4 week chunk of time, around 40 hours a week, and there's various NCT programs that we have approved, and they offer, cohorts starting at different times. So again, it's really what you feel is enough time to allow this person to create a schedule that would allow completion of this program.
I think that's probably what Dr. Beckman was more considering of. You have to get everything together. You're working already and have a family or whatever, and you're trying to first get everything prepared to take that class. So that's why it may take a little bit longer. But you're saying the programs normally only take about 3 to 4 weeks to complete?
Typically, that's what we see, because it's about 40 hours a week of study to get to that 120 hours. So like the shortest we've seen is the 3 weeks, where it's just the 40 hours every single day for that 3-week time period.
Okay. I'm good with a year though, just because, and then I'm sure she would try to get it done a lot sooner, but time passes very quickly. So when you're trying to get things done, and you look up and 6 months has already passed, I'm good with 1 year, unless the majority are not, but I'm good with 1 year.
I'm fine with that as well. I mean, it may take her a little while to find one that works around her schedule, or, figure out a time, like you say, with kids, or I don't know what her situation is, but it's not like she can just go sign up for one next week and get it out of the way.
Right.
She'll just have to see what works.
Okay. So it sounds like clarification, the remedy is to complete a board-approved NCT program within 1 year from the date of this meeting. And If the applicant does not comply with that after the 1 year, then her application will be considered withdrawn and expired.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification and my apologies for getting that a little late, but it's better late than never.
All right, do I need to, Scott, do I need to restate the resolution for vote or?
No, I think this is mainly internal processing for Ms. Unterborn and her staff to know, but the substance for the applicant to understand the expectations are very clear in the motion as tendered by Ms. Parker.
Okay, very good. If there's any other further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Aye, okay. Any against? All right, the motion passes.
Applicant 2580, you'll receive a separate email from board staff that contains a Teams link that you can leave this meeting and join that one to ask any questions that you have regarding the motion that you just heard, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Applicant number 3, the applicant is number 2598. This is an appeal of the executive director's determination. This applicant is a relicensure applicant. They initially held an MRT license issued by DISH in November of 2005. It expired in February of 2017 and was canceled for non-renewal in March of 2018. The applicant has not actively practiced as an MRT since June of 2014. She didn't provide any copies of completed CEs, but did indicate that she took the ARRT radiographer exam and successfully passed that on March 23rd, 2023. Because the applicant had not actively practiced since 2014, which is approximately 9 years from the date of application, board staff recommended that she submit verification of 24 hours of CEUs related to MRT practice and practice under the supervised temporary permit for 6 months. This recommendation is based on the active practice matrix that was created by the board. The applicant did receive a job offer from Dell Children's Hospital, and staff received the required signed paperwork and issued a supervised permit on May 30th, 2023 with an expiration date of November 30th, 2023. The applicant informed board staff that the hospital could not start her in the rad tech position until they could verify through the TMB website that she had a temporary license. Board staff did explain that this supervised temporary permit is not issued with the license number and it's not verifiable online, but board staff did offer that the applicant could let her employer know to contact her analyst directly to ask any questions and provide any verification that would be necessary. But the supervisor never responded to board staff's emails, and due to the temporary status of the permit, Dell Children's would not be able to complete the hiring process and the offer was rescinded. The issued supervised temporary permit was then officially terminated on June 12th, 2023. Because of this, the applicant is appealing the recommendation to remedy the active practice, stating that despite many attempts and interviews, I've been unable to have employment due to the license status. I had a complete job offer, did all the paperwork, and then it was rescinded due to the organization being unable to proceed with the temporary license status. So because of this, the applicant is appealing before the board today. Applicant number 2598, if you're present and can unmute yourself, please.
I'm present. Good morning.
Thank you. If you have an opening statement, you can say that at this time. If not, then the board members will move forward with asking you questions regarding your licensure application.
Good morning. I have a quick statement. Just wanted to say that the time that I did work in my career field, I loved it absolutely as a radiographer and a mammographer. Loved our community, loved my job. Had my 4th child, and my husband wanted me to come home and take care of kids for a little bit, which is the reason I was out of the career. Thought that I might not be returning just because we were set up in a certain way, but certain life changes recently have afforded that I needed to go back to work. The kids are a little older now, and I was hoping to just go back into my career. But it, taking lots of steps, taking the registry again, lots more difficult than I thought it would be. As far as the steps needed to get back into my career field. So I'm hopeful that I will still be able to, like I said, or like she read, I had the opportunity for Dell Children's. She was all for everything, the agreement, but whatever happened in administration wouldn't let the paperwork go through. So yes, I would love to complete everything asked of me, but have found great difficulty in successfully getting hired somewhere to complete the 6 months of the supervised. So I actually had to, because of that, I had to get another job back in September just because I needed the income, and the whole process had been taking a long period of time. So I do have a different part-time job just working outside of that career field for right now because we needed the income. So in the future, I will be sole provider once again for my kids, and would love to be in this career field. Thank you.
So again, you've been out of practice for 9 years? Is that
9
correct?
years.
No,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
And during that time, like obviously, because I don't imagine you would have done any CME or anything even tangentially related to radiology during that period.
Correct. Yes, my husband wanted me to stay home, and he's, you don't need that, you don't need that. And we couldn't afford the classes. Just even doing the CE classes was a little bit, he didn't want me to spend the money on that. So, I did some part-time things, but they were not in the field. That's correct.
And I assume you had this Dell job that was lined up, and then that they were not willing to move forward with your hire because of this status. But what other jobs have you looked for in radiology?
So there was one other clinic job that we almost went through to the hiring process, but the only way that they could do it the clinics that they were hiring for didn't have the actual supervisor at the location, and it requires the supervisor to be at the location. So the jobs that were available near me, to be able to commute and get back and do things that I needed to do for the kids, they weren't going to have a supervisor on the campus. So that's what we kept running into in different interviews, is that they didn't have someone available at the location that they were opening or hiring, that I would have to train back at a different facility that was way further away, almost inaccessible for me drive time wise. So the locations that they would be hiring for and needed the person for it wasn't going to work because there wasn't a supervisor on campus. That was Austin Regional Clinic was another place that I was trying to work with, and they were willing, but we couldn't come to an agreement that worked for all parties.
And just for the staff, is the requirement is that it has to be like a on-site supervision. It's as opposed to like someone who supervises the radio, like reviews the radiographs and ensures that they're of adequate quality.
Correct. The supervisor has to be on site.
I think that was the biggest hurdle when I was interviewing, was that it had to be someone there on site.
If you had a temporary license, would Dell hire you as opposed to a supervisory license? As long as they could have seen that you had a license on the website, would they have hired you? Was it really that much? And are we able to grant a licensure a temporary license with a stipulation of supervision? I mean, that's basically, instead of doing a supervisory license, a temporary license with stipulations like that.
I think that's I think that's just words that would change the effect. I think what you would be driving for, or really looking at, Dr. Beckman, and again, I don't want to overstep, but I think what you're really saying is you would be willing to grant her, it wouldn't really be a temporary that's supervised or a supervised temporary, because a temporary doesn't have the number. And many times, as you've heard before, and you know this as a group, you've heard there's some issues with some facilities not having a license number. The option here would be, and again, this is, you're going to have to think about this from a policy standpoint. You would, if it requires a number, you would have to license her and then put her subject to an order that would require, we're going to give you the license, but you have to get, and again, Grace and Yvette can jump in, but this would be like, and you've got to work in a supervised setting and get reports for the, the next 6 months, et cetera. Something along those lines, as opposed to the supervised temporary. That's not a number if that is the issue, but you still, what you're trying to create, Dr. Beckman, is the accountability. And the way to do that would be issue the license, but it would be subject to an order with whatever stipulations you felt that are necessary, including, it would have to be in a capacity that had some supervision by either a licensed MRT or a physician, and get reports, et cetera, et cetera. So it'd have to be something along those lines. And Ms. Underborn and Ms. Sharborough, you can jump in on that, but I guess because I don't think you can do what you're proposing, because whether you put temporary supervised or supervised temporary, the word order doesn't change the impact of what you're seeking for this individual.
Well, I do know what this lady is experiencing is pretty much the norm, because when we go to hire somebody, the first thing our HR does is look at, depending on which state it's for, but here in Texas, go to Texas Medical Board and find their deal. If they aren't on there, that's where the whole process stops. I mean, we don't even consider them. And I think it's that way at the hospitals as well. If they can't find a license, they're not even going to be considered.
It is.
So,
I would agree. That's how it is in our organization. You don't, there's no number, you don't get hired.
Ms. Lutz and Ms. Waddell, can I ask a clarification question to that? If the institution goes to our website and is able to pull up and query for the practitioner and they see a number, what about the fact that there could be that order attached to it indicate, and that they would have to read and see what's the nature of this order about? Would that impact a practitioner's ability to obtain employment if there is the number but it is attached with an order? I hope that makes sense.
well, I think at that point, as long as we can see that they're registered with the state or licensed with the state, then we would be speaking to that person going, okay, explain what's going on here, and then follow up with reading whatever might be attached to it online. But at least it would give them a foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if there's nothing that we can go to and find online, we're not even going to waste our time talking to them.
So there's a lot of value placed on that online verification.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That would be the same with our organization. We would say, hey, we would talk to the member, the licensee, and just say what's going on, and they wouldn't prevent them from being hired.
Thank you.
I was going to ask for a clarification question as well, as far as offering employment. I was just kind of confused because this happens, a lot, where we get applicants who they had a job offer and then it's rescinded for some, one of these reasons. But why would they offer a job like this, for example, applicant 2598, where then the potential prospective supervisor even signed the paperwork and everything, saying that this is what we'll do with these terms, but then rescind the offer? How is it they're able to put an offer out there if there's no license number? Like, if your license isn't good, is this normal policy?
Is that a question for me?
Well, maybe, I don't know, Miss Waddell, I don't know if you might know, or Miss Lutz.
I know our organization is small enough that looking at the first thing that our HR, we've got two ladies that do is look and see, verify licensing and verifying accreditation, or not accreditation, but registries. But I do know at larger facilities, that process could be broken up between departments to where somebody's excited about, you've got a radiology director who's desperate for an employee. Yes, we can hire you, blah, blah, blah. And then HR comes along behind them and to verify things. And then the red flag goes up. Oh, wait a minute. They don't have an active, we can't even find a license on the, on site. So I'm speculating that that's probably what happened. It just depends on what the normal flow is for these larger hospitals that have all these satellite clinics and doctors' offices and imaging centers and everything else, but then one gigantic centralized HR department.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a compliance department that's tied to the HR department. So there's many, many steps that they would have to go through in order to be hired. Because I come from a very large organization, so there's attorneys that are involved in compliance and a bunch of stuff. So it's different for us.
Got you. So you might get through one step and then the second one you're stopped. Okay.
Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I just had a question from Mrs. Baldwin. I noticed in your statement here, you said you wanted to find employment doing X-ray or mammography. So have you even thought about finding a way to getting an advanced registry in mammography, which is required?
Recertifying in mammography, yes, sir. I had my mammography registry before, or certification before, and that was something that I planned to do if I was able to secure a job in radiology. Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's what I did the longest. That's my most experience, was mammography.
And you were registered in mammography before then?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, any other comments or discussion from the board or a motion?
Remind us again what our options are, Grace.
So this is an appeal. So your first step would be to either grant the appeal or deny the appeal. If you would grant the appeal, then she would be put on our list to reissue her a RadTech license on our next licensing date. If you deny the appeal, then you can make the original recommendation stand that needs to complete a 6-month supervised temporary license. Or as Mr. Freshour articulated, right now you could give the option of, well, grant or approve for licensure under an agreed order, and then have stipulations of what the applicant would need to comply with under that agreed order to remedy the active practice issue. That would address, we would then, once the applicant signs the agreed order and the presiding officer signs the agreed order, then we can then put the applicant on our next licensing date. They would get issued, that license number would show up on our profile verification, online verification, but then that signed agreed order would also be part of the profile verification that anybody in the public could then click on and read the contents and the nature of it. So if you went with that route, then you would need to articulate what those terms would need to be in that agreed order so that the board can make sure she is compliant with all of that once the license is issued. Or you could deny the licensure application too. That's always the other extreme of options available.
Well, I'd be for granting licensure with agreed order, but I feel like it's at 9 years out, no, even, again, no active in any manner radiology experience. I think there has to be some sort of supervision education going on prior to full-fledged practice. So I would propose I'd make a motion to grant licensure with an agreed order of the 6 months of quarterly reports from their place of employment on radiology exams with and 24 hours of continuing education submitted.
I would second that motion.
Okay, so it is to grant the appeal, but you were going to issue a full license to this individual, subject to terms and conditions that you just outlined, Dr. Beckman, and that Mr. Moore and you seconded, which are 6 months of supervision in the practice with what would end up to be 2 quarterly reports and 24 hours of CM of CE.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Just clarifying for the record. So it's very crystal clear to the applicant what you're asking for as a committee.
I just have a clarification now. Does this mean we're granting the appeal or we're denying the appeal and then with Dr. Beckman's motion?
You are
granting the appeal.
Right, but granting the appeal, and what you are going to do in granting it is say, we will give you a full license, but you have to accept it with the terms of this agreed order that Dr. Beckman laid out. So that would be the parameters. And if the applicant says, well, no, I don't want an order, then there is no license that will be issued, and the application is done and closed. And quite frankly, and I don't mean to be harsh, but you can start over again, or decide what you're going to do as a career path, basically.
Right. So any further discussion on that? Okay, so we have a motion to grant the appeal for full licensure with the stipulation of an agreed order to have 6 months of supervision, which is 2 quarterly reports, and 24 CEs. Motion made by Dr. Beckman, seconded by Mr. Morin. Any discussion further on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? All right, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant 2598, you'll receive an email that contains a separate Teams meeting link that you can leave this one and join that one to ask board staff any questions you have regarding the motion that you just heard, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next applicant, applicant number 2576. This applicant is a relicensure applicant that is also appealing the executive director's determination. The applicant had an MRT license issued by DISH in October of 1995 until it expired in August of 2006, and then DISH issued the license again in March of 2008, and it was null and void in August of 2011. The applicant has not actively practiced since December of 1995. She indicates that she was an instructor for 14 years and maintained continuing education in the field. Her reason for applying is because she's closed her laboratory business and she needs to go back to work. She has qualifications as a radiation safety officer and has functioned as a trainer for multiple vendors as an application specialist for their products and software. She did provide a copy of her ASRT CE record list of credits earned from January 1st, 2021 through July 31st of 2023 that did document a total of 37.75 credits. The applicant's work history included that she had been a business owner and instructor for All-Star Education NCT training in Arlington from January 2001 to June of 2015. When the applicant's application was initially reviewed, board staff recommended that she would need to comply with 6 months under a supervised temporary permit. This was based on the active practice matrix approved by the board and accepting her experience as an NCT instructor until June of 2015 as the last date of active practice. She wanted to appeal that recommendation and have her work history reconsidered, indicating that it was unfair in her specific case. And she understands that working with patients is an integral part of healthcare, but radiology, on the other hand, is the same in terms of positioning a patient and utilizing radiology equipment for imaging. She's remained active in the field as a radiation safety officer, sales representative of the latest equipment, and also as an application specialist to teach the functionality and processing of the latest equipment. She indicates the mechanics have not changed in the field of radiology, and her desire is strictly to perform routine radiography exams. So upon receipt of the applicant's appeal statement, board staff did consult with the MRT licensure chairperson to review the work history and the information provided. The chairperson reviewed the information and clarified to board staff that the role of NCT instructor and the radiation safety officer position do not qualify as active practice as a MRT because the scope of practice is not the same. Based on the applicant's last time actively working as a radiologic technologist / mammography technologist in 1995 at Medical Relief Services, the chairperson recommended a 12-month supervised temporary permit rather than the 6-month supervised permit initially recommended by board staff. Upon receipt of this information, the applicant is appealing this recommendation. Applicant 2576, if you're present and can acknowledge by unmuting yourself, please.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have an opening statement, you can address that at this time. If not, the board members will move forward with asking you questions about your application.
I'd just like to thank you for taking my case. I actually have been a radiology technologist since my time in the military. I graduated in 1988. I moved back to North Texas and was involved in teaching others as a sales representative because I couldn't go back into interventional radiology, which I had trained at Walter Reed. While doing my sales position there, I actually found the need for training other individuals that were limited license at that particular time. So I opened my business as an NCT instructor. At the same time, I had another business that we opened to sell and service X-ray equipment. So from the years 2000 to 2015, when I sold both of those to a major nationwide company because of an accident that I had with my husband, I was active as a radiation safety officer, active in teaching radiology positioning. And when I applied for this particular license, all of the documentation that I saw for getting my board, obviously the change from the Texas Department of State Health Services not certifying anymore, but now the Texas Medical Board, there was nothing in any of the regulations that I saw as far as your active practice matrix. So I was unaware. And then the documentation that's been sent to me is Texas Administrative Code 194.6, and it says for non-certified technicians, there is an item there, number 2, that says if I have a current active ARRT license, that that negates that. So I'm very confused where the active practice matrix is actually published. And so I'm at your mercy, really. This is just your grace to submit a certification for me at this particular time in my life. So I closed my business in 2022. I had a laboratory business. I had an X-ray machine. We never took X-rays because we had to shut it down before I could ever do that. I closed that business, and then obviously everything was a little devastating for me. So I had a successful business and I had an unsuccessful business. So I wanted to go back into radiology just to work for someone else and just take that time to do that. So not being able to function fully as without supervision, I felt like was limiting for me, because I have so much in my background to be able to offer other people. I interviewed for a couple of different jobs, but obviously because I don't have the Texas MRT license, then they couldn't hire me. Then when it came back and it was extended for a 12-month period, again, it was devastation for me. So that's why I'm here today and at your mercy.
Hi, I have a few questions. You said you did interventional radiology?
I did at Walter Reed. I was trained in
Okay,
interventional radiology.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So your plan is to do just general x-ray or more interventional, or?
Well, actually, since my application, I have opened another business, and I now work for one major medical company that has 26 locations. I install x-ray equipment for them. I train their technologists all over the United States. I'm not actively practicing in a hospital with patients, but I would like to be compliant. I would like to have my certification. If I were to ever go back into the hospital to do work, yes, it would only be for routine radiography, not for interventional services, not for mammography services.
And you're installing equipment?
I don't personally install. I sell the equipment. There's a licensed installer that I hire to do that.
And when you say radiation safety officer, what kind of training did you have for that?
Under the old regulations through the Texas Department of State Health Services, because I was an ARRT, I was grandfathered into that. I am no longer a radiation safety officer for anyone.
Okay, and you were a radiation safety officer for registrations or RAM licenses?
For my business as the X-ray company, and then they also granted me a license when I installed in my laboratory. When I applied for that application, I was granted radiation safety officer of ArcPoint Labs of Southwest Fort Worth, and that was from I believe it was 2020 to 2022. I was listed as a radiation safety officer.
Okay, thank you. I'll just say I do agree with the scope of practice is different from obviously an NCT to an MRT, and the lag in time of practice I have concerns with. That's my opinion.
Just to be clear, like what radiography type work have you been doing in the last several years with your jobs? Like you've been selling equipment, but how would you say that relates to a future job as a radiology technologist?
As an application specialist, I actually go in and teach the technologist how to position with the equipment. So we work 16 hours to do positioning, to do the functionality of the equipment. So while I'm not working directly with patients, I am actually patient simulating. We do have active patients that come in and I supervise as they're doing, their training. So I feel like that, I don't know, I'm just going to leave it for you.
Sure. Okay.
What were the CEUs, the topics of the CEUs that you completed last year?
I will read you the list. Let me find that. Precision cancer therapy using therapeutics, biomedical research with molecular imaging, medical imaging using artificial intelligence, CT Basics, Module 2, Module 3, Module 4, breast amyloidosis, dose optimization in digital radiography, biological effects of radiation exposure, primary mediastinal large B-cell lipoma, CT imaging of gastrointestinal bleeding, infection control and magnetic resonance MRI, medical imaging of explosion injuries, brain tumors, prognosis and treatment, breast cancer survivorship and surveillance, best practices in digital radiography, HPV-associated oral pharyngeal cancers, imaging assessments of gunshot injuries, radiation safety compliance, medical imaging role in COVID-19 pandemic, improving safety procedure through incident learning, medical imaging of neglected tropical diseases of America, metastatic breast cancer, multiple sclerosis, an update, and imaging in podiatry.
Wow.
Just
And
to
so
be,
you-
just that, Ms. Parker, those do date back to 2021. That was the full list, not.
Okay,
just
thank
last
you. I
year.
was just about to ask. I said,
Yeah,
one
that
year?
was,
Okay.
no, that was the full list from back to 2021.
2021 to 2023. Okay. Thank you.
And just to be clear again, like the applications jobs that you've had in the last couple of years, how many hours a week were you working as apps where you were interacting with clinics with patients or simulating patients?
My job with Mary X-Ray that actually purchased my company ended in 2019. So it's really hard for me to put a finger on because each time that I sold a piece of equipment and they put it in, I'd have to go and do applications. I was in the top 5 of the sales. So, I mean,
Can you ballpark? So again, like I'm trying to figure out like how many hours a week were you actively engaged in doing use of radiography equipment, either where you're showing the techs on this new equipment how to image a patient, so they had patients there and you were giving them pointers, right? I assume that's kind of like what you were doing as an application, or
That's correct.
how you were without patients having the techs go and again, you would say, well, this is how you would position or this is how you would collimate and use equipment. Like, can you estimate in the last 4 years, like since 2019, how many hours a week on average you think that you worked doing
do you
those specific activities? Sorry.
understood? No, not a problem. Do you consider either webinar or telephone instruction the same, or do I need to be in that room with them?
I
Because
think
do
an in person. I would count in person is what I'm looking for.
Mhm. Then it would be less than an hour a week, to be honest with you.
That I appreciate that. Thank you. And that, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Are these portable x-rays or standalone? Is this CR/DR? What kind of x-ray equipment is this?
Now my focus is primarily digital radiography. It's a standalone piece of equipment, just in urgent cares and regular medical doctor offices. But I've done computed radiography as well. I went back to dip tanks, so that's where my training began.
And this 1 hour a week kind of practice that you've had, that's been your practice for how many years now?
Since 2000.
Yeah. Okay.
I was voted top 25 from top 25 technologists from the North Texas Radiologic Society in 2016. I don't know if that makes any difference to you or not. I've actually been with the ASRT as an advocate in Washington, D.C. to vote and to lobby with the legislatures for, I understand the need for technologists to be under a registry with the state. I completely agree with that. I also know that I could go across the state line that doesn't require a state regulation. I could do work for them for just a little bit and come back to the medical technology here, the board, and this would go through. So to me, there's a loophole here. But again, I'm at your mercy.
And so, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Beckman.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I would. It has been a long time being out of direct patient care practice, but it seems like there's a lot of knowledge base there and a lot of interaction with radiology. I would have been leaning towards a reduced supervisory license of 3 months.
Okay, so let me, I think you and I were kind of on the same page. So just to clarify again, Ms. Unterborn, this is an appeal, correct? So
Correct.
what you could do, Dr. Beckman, and again, this would be open for your entire committee and Dr. Khan, for your entire committee, you could, Dr. Beckman, you could move to grant the appeal, and then you could either issue a supervised temporary with, 3 months of supervision, or you could theoretically go kind of like you did with the last applicant and issue, if you felt comfortable. Now, this is entirely up to you. Issue her a full license under some form of a restriction for, supervised for 3 months with reports. But again, she is not necessarily saying, I want to go back into, or I need a license number to do this. So again, I think this is you've got a little more wiggle room on this. You could say grant the supervised temporary license with 3 months supervision. I take it you're satisfied with the CEs that were recited. So again, you could do that, or you could issue the full license with a remedial plan, I guess, to get one report after 3 months from a supervising physician within the next 6 months saying she's demonstrated, sufficient competence. So, I mean, you're pretty flexible on that. But again, you've got to start with, do you deny or grant the appeal? If you grant, under what conditions do you want to grant? It may be supervised TL for 3 months, period. And and I think, Ms. Underborn, you could do something like that, correct, to your staff?
Yes, if they choose to grant the appeal and recommend a 3-month supervised temporary license, then we would just wait for the paperwork to come in, verify that everything checks out, and then issue the supervised temporary permit to allow that supervision to take place. Again, that's not verifiable on the website. There's no number attached to that, but it's to remedy the active practice issue. Ms. Lutz?
Just a question. Would the supervised hours for 3 months, I mean, you've got radiology, right? That's general radiographs, and you've got interventional, which is a lot different, right? And then you've got CT, which she's done some CEUs. I would say, I don't know. I think interventional radiology and CT, would that be a little bit longer than 3 months? I mean, I'm just questioning the 3 months versus, I mean, depending on what she's going to do, right? So I don't know if that explains it.
Mr. Moran?
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to get the opinion of the chairperson of the licensure committee, because they recommended going from 6 months to 12 months of supervised training. What is their opinion of reducing it down to 3?
Who was involved with that case?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing Ms. Brandt in
Ms.
the
Brandt has had to step
attendees.
away. Ms. Brandt had to step away, so
Okay.
she is not present. But again, as a licensure chair, you're right, you can ask her, but again, as a committee as a whole, you don't, I mean, you're not bound by that, Mr. Moore. And so, and I do understand why you're asking that. That certainly makes a lot of sense. But again, in her absence, whatever the will of the committee is the will of committee. And obviously, despite or perhaps even contrary to what Ms. Brandt thought. But again, remember, when she's seeing this from board staff and Ms. Underborn staff, they are going by the standard matrix. And that is why this individual has an appeal right, because you as a committee, as a whole, and all of you together may see it differently. And that is the whole purpose of this.
The matrix does say for a full MRT licensure applicant that has been out, excuse me, for over 10 years, it is required CEs and a 12-month supervised certificate. And this applicant in the review with December of 1995 was the last time practicing as a rad tech. And so that's more than likely where it came from.
I'm so sorry. May I respectfully ask where the matrix is actually published?
The matrix is not published on our website. It's an internal process that was a matrix that was created by the board members that you see before you and authorized by licensure to use to offer remedies for issues of active practice, depending on the duration of being out of practice. So it is not something that's published for the public to review. It's part of the internal process when board staff is reviewing licensure applicants.
Is there a
So
reason
then
why
just
we
to,
can't publish it? Is there a reason why we can't publish that?
That's an internal process that the board has directed licensure staff to utilize when reviewing licensure applications. So that, because it's internal, it's documentation that licensure staff uses when reviewing licensure cases. It's not just like a standard form that we put on our website that applicants could download and use or anything like that.
I just wanted to see where we were on our decision. So is everyone accepting the CEUs that she's already completed? It's more we're looking at the time frame of possibly supervision or something.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So right now it was set at 6 to 12 months, but for this appeal, we're trying to figure out what we would like to do. Okay.
And again, I feel like the work that she's done is very, I mean, it's very related to what she would do as a radiology technologist if she were to achieve a license. I just think that given that it hasn't been, a full-fledged radiology technologist practice, I think it would be prudent to have some supervision for some period, which is why I think 3 months I still feel 3 months is very reasonable time. In fact, I would make unless anyone has any other discussion, would like to make a motion. All right, I'd like to make a motion that we grant full licensure with a stipulation or an agreed order that she has 1 quarter of reported supervision.
I'll second
And
that.
Sorry.
I just want to get clarification. So an agreed order would be disciplinary in nature. So
Yeah.
do you mean the standard? So the standard process, Grace, is that there is a supervised temporary license issued. They go through the process. If everything comes back successfully, then licensure is authorized to grant the license at that point, which is free, unrestricted, and there is no disciplinary order on the license. Is that how it generally works?
Correct. The remedy is offered to them if they accept it, provide the paperwork and complete it with no issues reported by their supervisor, then yes, we would put them on our next licensing date to then be issued that full unrestricted MRT license.
So there's really no disciplinary aspect to the current process. And I just wanted to caution you, this is a threshold eligibility issue, not a violation to address through a disciplinary order.
Well, yeah, and it's a threshold issue, and so what you're really looking for is technically is a 3-month eval. You give her a license but you're looking for an evaluation in the initial 3-month period to show competence. It's basically remediation for an active practice issue. We call it a remedy. Remedy is remediation, correct? So do you want to do it as an agreed order, which would appear as a restriction, at least on her license? And it would be reportable, I believe, to the National Practitioner Data Bank, or as Ms. Tuthill was just saying, you know, we've used supervised temporaries to remediate, and those are not reportable from that extent. But if you want her to be given the license, I think the question becomes, do you want to call this a remedial plan where you give it to her subject to a remedial plan that requires at the end of the first 3 months of work or within 6 months, you know, an evaluation as to her competence from either a fully licensed MRT or a physician as to her competence. That's what you're trying to get to, right?
Yeah, I was trying to do where, yeah, there's a report, but not necessarily direct supervision required at the facility.
And not disciplinary.
And not disciplinary, yes.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that you can go two ways. One, you can, from what Scott is saying, one, you can have an agreed order, which would be disciplinary, or you grant a temporary supervised license. Is that correct, Scott?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So, as opposed to what we did in the previous case, which was we wanted a full licensure so it would be seen on the website, but then it came with a remediation order. This would be a supervised temporary license, because in this case it doesn't matter if she has a full license that's that her employer can see online, but with the 3-month stipulation of 1 quarter of supervised report.
Okay, so let me do this. Here's the thing, that the matrix, I think the cleanest way to do this is to grant the appeal, grant a 3-month temporary license, a 3-month supervised temporary license. Be done with it. Once the report came in after the 3 months and says it's okay, then Ms. Unterborn and her staff can issue just the full regular license. Given that you're all leaning towards all of the training and all of her knowledge, that you only think 3 months, the cleanest and most simple and consistent way with what you've done historically would be to offer the 3-month supervised temporary license. At the end of the 3 months, get the report back for her. And as I said, Ms. Unterborn and her staff could then issue a full unrestricted MRT, and the problem is resolved.
I think I like that option better instead of going with a full license to begin with. So I like the temporary supervision license, in my opinion, for the 3 months.
Okay.
And then after the report, to go with the full license.
Okay, so for clarification, it sounds like that leaning towards granting the appeal and to remedy the active practice, do a 3-month supervised temporary permit rather than the initial 12-month that was originally recommended that led to the appeal and appearance before today. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'd like to rescind my previous motion and make a new motion to grant the appeal and then to grant a 3-month temporary supervisory license.
And I'll rescind my second on the first.
Right.
And I'll second the second one.
For clarification purposes, this application also expired at the beginning of January 2024. So is there a duration that she needs to find a supervisor and get that paperwork back to board staff? And if unable to, then the application will be considered withdrawn and expired.
6 months from today, from date of meeting.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion by Dr. Beckman to grant the appeal and grant a 3-month supervisory temporary license with a duration to complete all the paperwork and requirements within 6 months, seconded by Ms. Waddell. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any against? All right, the motion passes.
Thank you. Applicant 2576, you'll receive an email with a separate Teams meeting link. You can leave this meeting to join that one to ask board staff any questions you have regarding the motion that you just heard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is our final licensure applicant appearing today, applicant number 2591. This is a relicensure applicant as well and appeal of the executive director determination. The applicant had an MRT license issued in December of 2005 under DISH that expired in November of 2017. It was canceled for non-renewal in December of 2018. The applicant has not actively practiced as a medical radiologic technologist since October of 2016. In her statement, she indicated that she has actively treated patients as an MRT while working remotely at both Real Radiology and Radiology Partners. At Real Radiology, her position, she indicates, was customer support technologist, and this was from July 2019 to May of 2022. And at Radiology Partners, the position was a matrix worklist specialist from June 2022 to June 2023. Board staff did receive Form L evaluations for both employers. From Real Radiology, they indicated her job title was Operations Support Specialist 2. And the Form L from Radiology Partners indicated her job title was Workflow Special Matrix. And they stated on the form that they weren't able to answer any questions related to performance or clinical questions and could only verify the title and dates of employment. She did provide a copy of her ASRT CE record list of credits earned from September 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2023 that documented a total of 39.75 credits. When asked what her practice plans are for relicense, the applicant indicated that she'd be performing MRI, CT, and X-rays in Texas. Because she'd not actively practiced since 2016, which was approximately 7 years from date of the application, board staff recommended that she comply with the 6-month supervised temporary permit. This was based on the active practice matrix. She's appealing this and provide a few statements to her analysts indicating that this requirement is ridiculous and that she's used to have her Texas MRT license and have continued to practice in the radiology field. And she currently has a job working alone in a mobile MRI unit. She goes on to say that the recommendation is unfair and that she's being penalized for working in the radiological field, whether it is teleradiology, MRI, et cetera. She said she had to take an MRI position and that she's the main breadwinner of her family and needs to work. And she's appealing this recommendation to the board today. So applicant number 2591, if you're present and can unmute yourself, please.
Before we start.
Oh, yes.
Mr. President, I just need to recuse myself from this case.
Applicant 2591, if you're present and can unmute yourself, please.
Hold on 1 second. So Scott, how do we proceed with this? Do I need to accept that recusal from Ms. Waddell?
No, that's just on the record. That's all we need.
Okay.
And you can proceed.
Yeah, we've noted it for the minute. So Ms. Waddell, we would just ask that you refrain from any commentary during any input or anything like that. What we've advised on some other boards is the safest thing to do is just to turn your camera off for this particular part of the agenda item. Thank you.
Ms. Unterborn, you're muted.
Thank you. My apologies. Applicant 2591, if you're present and can unmute yourself, please.
Yes. Am I unmuted right now?
Yes, now I can hear you. Applicant 2591, if you have an opening statement, you can say that at this time. If not, then the board members will move forward with asking you questions regarding your application.
Thank you for meeting with me today. I really appreciate everyone's time. I was kind of confused with the whole process of trying to, I've been licensed with the Texas Medical Board, and I moved and I let the license, I didn't reapply because I thought I wasn't going to move back, and I moved back to Texas, and I didn't know it was going to be so difficult to obtain it. I did kind of go back to certain documentation on the TMB website on what a medical radiologic technologist is, as what the definition is. And one thing that it says performing radiographic studies, CAT scan, MRI, X-rays, PET scan, mammography, fluoroscopy. And I continue to do MRI at this junction in my life, but I didn't think it was going to be like an issue because I'm not directly doing CT or X-ray at this moment. But when I tried to apply for a job, they said I had to have my Texas license. So that was the issue with why I couldn't apparently get it. And so I was just trying to appeal because I have been practicing in this field since 2002, whether it's been an instructor for CT, X-ray tech, working at interventional. Then I cross-trained for CT as well as MRI. Most of the time I did multimodality, and then in certain locations they didn't offer multimodality, so I had to succumb to just doing straight MRI. But within that time span, I still continued to do my CUs that incorporated both the MRI as well as the CT and the X-ray principles. So it wasn't just straight MRI, so that I could keep that radiation aspect in conjunction with it. So I'm just trying my hardest to get this license because I feel like it's important to me since I am in Texas and I did have it before, and I really want to continue to represent the state of Texas in that aspect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I actually had a question, just looking at your professional practice history. So between October of 2016 to January 2018, you were out of the field of radiology?
I'm sorry, which looking here?
So I'm seeing, at least with what we have, your professional practice history. You're working in Amarillo, Texas until October of 2016, and then it starts back up again in January of 2018 in Montana.
Yes, sir. That time I actually moved to Canada. My husband took a pastoral position in Canada, and they put stipulations on me and said I could not practice as an ART in Canada. So I had to work at a job just at a temp company. So that was the lapse on that one.
Okay. And then from when you worked in Kalispell, Montana, you worked as just an MRI technologist, or were you also doing CT and radiography?
I would have loved to do all three, but the position only allowed me to do MRI at that time. That's why I just continued to do my CUs to honor both the X-ray aspect as well.
Okay, thank you.
And you would like the license, I mean, I know in Texas, even to be an MRI tech in some facilities, they require you to have an MRT license, but you want your MRT license specifically for what aspect? Because you're currently working as an MR tech, correct?
Yeah, and I think it as one representative mentioned earlier, when they go to apply, or when someone applies, if you don't have the Texas MRT license, it's just a big, it's almost like an X. I almost don't look at you as someone that has been practicing, since 2002. And so that's kind of why, I wanted to obtain it, because it does look good on your record to have that, as well as if I was to go to do X-ray, doing a side job or do something involving X-ray, I wouldn't be allowed to, even though I've been doing it for over 20 years. And that's the thing that makes it hard for me, because I don't have that Texas license, and they won't either hire you for that, or they won't allow you to doing X-ray or CT, even though you're licensed.
But you don't need it for your current job is not asking you to do this. Is that correct?
No, sir. They do not require it.
And you have not done radiography in 10 years. Is that correct?
I think the last time was actually 7 years ago, I believe. I could be wrong. Envision Imaging of Frisco was the last, and that was June of 2016. So about 7 years, I think.
When you said from July 2019 to May 2022, because you were saying the active practice date was incorrect of October 2016. And so from July 2019 to May 2022, you were working from home. What was that you were doing?
Okay, that was during kind of the time period when COVID was occurring. And in Montana, there's just not a lot of employment at that location. So I had an opportunity to work remote. And I basically maintained helping with the radiologist, helping get, the images, everything sorted out for the provider, and just basically doing teleradiology requirements. So.
Okay, so you weren't physically working the machines or anything like that. You were,
no,
since you were working remotely. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, that's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore, were you trying to say something?
Oh, mine was kind of along that same lines. Is I was just trying to understand why she was saying she actively treated patients. It's kind of hard to do when you're off site. And according to her jobs, the title of her job, she was an operations support specialist. So she was there basically to support the department, not really to perform any radiologic procedures. And I believe that's what, is that correct, Ms. Bellin?
Yes, we were basically there to help, like if the site needed images, if they needed something done that the radiologist didn't have on the report. We basically were the go-between for the company and the sites that they were to represent. And so we just kind of were like the in-between person that helped, with the radiology process.
And for clarification, if I could get a board member, please, or active practice, what is the definition of active practice?
I believe we've defined active practice in the past, and Scott can correct me if I'm wrong. It's 20 hours a week, right? Is it 30?
It's a minimum of 20 hours a week for 40 weeks. For 40 weeks. Mm-hmm.
In the preceding year.
In one of the 2 years preceding the date of the application.
Yes, which is also, you've looked at that before, because it does sometimes create an issue where 36 weeks are in one year and the next 4 in the other year. And the way the definition is that you've got the 40 hours, but it's actually over a 2-year period if it's completed in January of the new year, which is technically not within one preceding year. So
Right.
you've worked with that and said, well, yeah, it was only 36 weeks in 2022, but you got your other 4 or 5 weeks in 2023. We're going to count it as 40. So you've had to do a little creative mathematics occasionally, but the standard definition is 20 hours a week for 40 weeks within the preceding 1 or 2 years, but it has to be all within a singular year period, even though we give a 2-year look back.
Okay. And it would be considered on-site, not telehealth. Correct?
I'm sorry, say that again, Ms.
Oh,
Parker.
it would be considered on-site, like actually physically doing the images and things, not telehealth.
Well, the whole thing with telehealth is that for the MRTs, it's different because of some of their supervision requirements, where a radiologist does almost everything anymore remotely in many cases. But for the MRTs, and particularly in some of these cases, the issue is there has to be supervision, and particularly in these kinds of issues, you want the supervision to be on site to see what they're actually doing. Are they positioning correctly? Are they taking, accurate pictures? What is their bedside manner? There's a number of elements that go into that. So telehealth, well, it's telemedicine, it's not telehealth, and that I don't want to get into the whole definition, but telehealth is something other than telemedicine, and telemedicine is defined in Texas. So without going into a whole lot of that, is the intent here is it theoretically could, but part of the problem is because of the lack of direct patient care, that is why it is required to be on site, because the MRTs are positioning people, they're pushing a button. It does not lend itself to telemedicine or telehealth like the radiologist reading the film. So it's a different entity. So you're really boots on the ground, as I understand the MRT and radiological function, versus what the radiologist himself or herself is doing.
Okay. That's the way I understood
that would be
it.
my interpretation too, Scott, because I mean it's a little bit different I think from the MD side to the MRT and RT, and because it's in this case I think, like you said, it's the boots on the ground and actually taking the image and having patient contact and radiation safety, as opposed to, like in this case, basically being the in between the radiologist and the boots on the ground at whatever facility the x-rays were being taken, making sure all the images are there and things like that. One point I will bring up, and this is, and I've mentioned this before and it keeps coming up and it's going to come up again, is that specifically MRTs that are practicing MRI in Texas are getting more under the microscope, because a lot of their facilities are asking for MRT license, and if they've been doing MRI for a long time, they have not been doing ionizing radiation. So that's something that I'm not sure it's in the scope of our board, but something that maybe the legislature will have to look at, how we're going to incorporate the MRI technologist under the MRT Act.
And that's already, the issue has been come up a little bit. Miss Yarbrough and I have had a couple of discussions with HHSC, not specific to what you just mentioned, Dr. Khan, but more specifically to what do you do with the MRI imaging specifically unto itself, because it's kind of somewhere in the gray land, right, between, and we've had that issue come up on the medical physicist side, where they're looking at some of their certifications. So we are aware of the whole issue.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, because obviously there's, beyond ionizing radiation, there are other safety issues. An issue with MRI that needs to be supervised, but nonetheless, yeah, it's sort of a gray area. Any other comments or discussion?
Yeah, like
Ms. Lux?
contrast, right? The MRI techs are injecting contrast, so.
Or just radiation, I mean, just safety, right? You know, you don't want your oxygen tank flying into the MRI.
Or burns, yeah.
Or burns, any of those. Yeah, any other comments on this specific case?
May I say one thing? I did find this, and I think that Shannon just mentioned it, where it says on the Texas Administrative Code, Title 22, Part 9, Chapter 194, Subchapter A, Rule 194.17. It says on C, on the letter C, it says here, unless otherwise noted, the list of hazardous procedures which may only be performed by a practitioner or MRT are, and then it goes into a whole lengthy thing. And it does say on number 8, radiographic procedures which utilize contrast media. And I inject patients quite often, and I feel like it's saying that, like, as an MRT, which I'm trying to fight to get, that I am okay to inject the contrast media according to this administrative code. So that's kind of what I was concerned or curious about.
I think you just said that said radiographic procedures were contrast administered, correct?
What was that?
Were you asking, is it just exclusive for MRTs to administer radiographic contrast, or people who have a license to administer contrast for radiographic exams? I think that's what you were asking.
Yeah, I mean, if it defines somebody that is either a practitioner or an MRT, and it lists somebody that actually injects contrast media, then I would think that I would personally think that an MRI tech is still considered part of that category as an MRT, just because they are utilizing hazardous material and injecting a contrast media that will help produce for the images, you know? So,
but I think technically on that, it was for radiographic exams, and what you do is not a radiographic exam, it's an MRI. So I think that's the technical distinction.
Yeah. And I think, and I understand, and I think what you're talking about here is what Dr. Khan brought up, but quite frankly, I'm going to bring this back to what you're dealing with this individual is her question on her licensure status. And I think what you're talking about, Dr. Beckman and Dr. Khan brought up, were some forward-looking issues, but do not directly impact this individual's situation. So why don't we get back to that and kind of keep this on focus?
So I would recommend, and I'd like to hear discussion on it, a similar resolution to this licensure appeal as the previous case, in that, you know, this applicant has extensive experience. Granted, it's not been recent, but things really haven't changed that much in the last 7 years in radiography. And she has been continuing to practice and kept up with her CEs. So I would consider what we had previously discussed and the resolution by Dr. Beckman as a solution. I'd like to hear discussion from the board members.
I think that's reasonable. I would support a 3-month supervisory license.
Supervised
I
TO.
would too.
Okay. Okay, well, let somebody make a formal motion and get a second on that, and we can go ahead. Then I think, Dr. Khan, you can call for your committee's vote.
I'll make a motion to grant the appeal and to grant a 3-month supervisory license.
And Dr. Beckman, while you're
second.
in that, do you also want to, with regards to the duration, to comply with that? Her application was filed on July 6, 2023, so it has not officially expired yet. It would officially expire on July 6, 2024, which is only approximately 5 months from the date of this meeting.
I would give her 6 months
6
from the
months.
day of the meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, any further discussion? All right, so we have a motion by Dr. Beckman to grant the appeal for a temporary license for 3 months with supervisory requirements for 3 months. And the time period for this to be completed to be 6 months from the date of the current meeting. This was seconded by Ms. Lutz. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any against? All right, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Applicant 2591, you'll receive an email from board staff with a meeting to a separate Teams link that you can leave this one to attend that one to ask any questions that you have regarding the motion that you just heard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the licensure applicants scheduled to appear for today under agenda item number 7.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Untermorn. We'll move on to item number 8, which is proposed order by the executive director.
There are 2 proposed remedial plans that were offered by the executive director and accepted by the applicants, and I need a motion for approval, please.
Move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion to approve the proposed order by the executive director. There are 2 of them, made by Dr. Beckman and seconded by Mr. Morin. Any discussion on the topic? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, the motion passes and the orders are approved. All right.
Dr. Khan, I think you may have a request from one of your board members to take a brief comfort break. I know we've been going for a while, so just putting that on your radar.
Okay. Do you want to take that break now? Okay. All right. So we will take, how long do you need? 10 minutes, 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
11:30? All right. We will reconvene in 15 minutes at 11:30. Thank you.
Hey, Scott.
Yes.
I have a quick question. I am 2 people short at work and I'm doing patient care this afternoon. I really need to leave in about 10 minutes. Is that going to cause a problem?
Let me count the people we have, because what we can do on that, Miss Waddell, and we can speak with an Yvette. Are you here? I don't know if you're back yet, Yvette. I think we can count if we have quorum, that's fine. If we are going to lose quorum with you having to leave, what we can do is get Dr. Khan to take those items that need a vote and do those now.
Okay.
And then anything else that's just a report, etc., that doesn't require a vote, you don't need a quorum because you're not taking an affirmative action. So let me get a count as soon as everybody gets back in. If that's back, Sarah and Wendy will get a count, because I can see 5 of you right now. I can see you, I can see Miss Lutz, I can see Miss Landreth, I can see Miss Parker, and I can see Mr. Moran. We know we have
I think we will still have 7.
That's what I think too, Wendy. I think we'll still at least, but we
7
only
out
need
of 9.
5, right? We only need
2,
5.
3, 4.
So I don't think that is going to be an
Yeah.
issue. And right
Okay,
now
I
I can.
apologize. I just.
No. It's okay. We knew it was going to be a little bit longer today than usual because of the applicants, but I think we're going to be fine on quorum. I think Wendy's confirmed that. So if you need to step away, we still have enough to vote on any items with your committee. So that is not a problem, Ms. Waddell.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, it is 11:30 a.m. on February 2, 2024. I would like to recall the Texas Medical Radiologic Technology Board to order. And we stopped at item number 9. We will continue at that point. So item number 9, rescinding or denial of a program or instructor, and there are none.
There are none.
Item number 10, reporting program approvals / renewals. Looks like there's none. Item number 11, reports and discussion, RE investigation, litigation, and compliance.
And hello, board members. Amy Swanholm, litigation director. Be pretty quick on this today. You have several reports in there for your review. Highlights, really just limit that to just noting that there have been 2 TS hearings that were held and granted since your last board meeting, one in October and one in November. Other than that, everything looks pretty standard for this time of year, and happy to answer any questions if you have them.
All right, if there's no discussion or questions from the board members, then we will move forward to item number 12, which is consideration and approval of expert panel, which there are none. Item number 13, discussion and possible action regarding review of probationers' appearances. There are none. Item number 14, follow-up files. There are none. Item number 15, cases recommended for dismissal.
All right, and board, under this, you have 2 items. We'll go through them separately. The first one, I would just ask Ms. Landreth, are there any cases that have been assigned to you that you'd like to pull for discussion?
No.
Okay, hearing no items being pulled, if you would like to make a motion or someone would like to make a motion to approve the dismissals listed under item A.
I would like to make a motion to approve the dismissal.
I second the motion.
All right, there's a motion by Ms. Landreth to approve the dismissal of cases that were assigned to her under item A, and seconded by Mr. Moran. Any discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against?
Aye.
None? Okay, that passes.
Okay, and then moving on to agenda item number 15B, there are cases assigned to Dr. Beckman, Dr. Khan, Ms. Lutz, and Mr. Moran. Would anybody like to pull any of their assigned cases for discussion today? Okay, seeing nods in the no indication, you would need a motion to approve the dismissals under agenda item 15B.
I
And I think
motion to,
just
oh,
to
go
make
ahead.
it, just to make it clean, normally what we've done is we've had each individual that reviewed those cases assigned to them make a motion to approve the dismissals for the cases assigned to them. Just so it's clean as to who has reviewed what.
Okay, either way. All right, so Dr. Beckman, would you like to make a motion for the cases assigned to you under agenda item number 15B? And you
You're
are
muted.
muted.
Sorry. Okay. I would make a motion to approve the cases for dismissal that have been assigned to me.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Beckman to accept the dismissal of the cases assigned to him under 15B item 1, and seconded by Ms. Waddell. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, accepted.
All right, and agenda item number 15B2, cases assigned to Dr. Khan. You have one case. Would you like to pull it or would you like to make a motion?
Now, I'd like to make a motion to accept the dismissal of the case assigned to me under 15B2.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Ms. Landreth. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Nay, passes.
All right, and Ms. Lutz, on to you. Would you like to pull a case or make a motion? I believe she might be frozen, so why don't we move on and we'll swing back after we go to agenda item number 15B4, cases assigned to Mr. Morin. Mr. Morin, do you have any cases you'd like to discuss out of your case, or would you like to make a motion?
I'd go ahead and make the motion, please. I'd like to move that the cases assigned to me under 15B4 be dismissed.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Morin to accept the dismissal of cases assigned to him under item 15B4 and seconded by Ms. Waddell. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
against? All right, the motion passes.
All right, and it unfortunately looks like Ms. Lutz has dropped off of the meeting. So we could go on to 16 and then come back to agenda item 15B3, if that's okay with everybody, just in the interest of time. So I'll mark that.
Just table that one for right now until the return of Ms. Lutz, if you would, Ms. Swanholm, and move on. I agree with you.
Okay, all right, agenda item number 16, if just moving on. You have no jurisdictional items under 16A for your consideration. You do have items under 16B. Would anyone like to pull or discuss one of those cases, or if not, make a motion to deny the appeals or grant if you would like to have them go back for more investigation or consideration?
Can we do these together or do we do them separately?
You can do them together.
There's no commentary, then I would like to make a motion to deny appeal.
I'll second.
Okay.
All right, there is a motion made by Dr. Beckman regarding the appeals under 16B, both for Ms. Landreth and for Dr. Beckman. And it is seconded by Ms. Landreth. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, the motion passes for denial of appeal.
And Dr. Khan, there are no items under 16C that would need consideration. So you could move on to 17 if you wanted to.
Okay. We will move on to item number 17, which is a determination of defaults.
And board, under this item, you have two cases that are going to be presented today for default. Mr. Elliott Day will be presenting those cases to you on behalf of board staff.
Yes. Good morning, board members. We are here today to discuss the default order entered against Jorge Barrientos and Benjamin Harwell by the State Office of Administrative Hearings' Administrative Law Judge. For context, on August 15th, 2023, board staff filed the complaints against each respondent at the State Office of Administrative Hearings for Mr. Barrientos alleging that he was arrested and convicted of driving while intoxicated, second, a Class A misdemeanor, and failing to respond to the board's requests for information. And regarding Benjamin Harwell, MRT, he was arrested and convicted of driving.
Elliot, let's take them separately so
Sure.
that there's an opportunity to ask if either party have appeared, if you don't mind, and we need to vote separately on that.
Sure. Going back to Mr. Barrientos' case, the notice of complaint was sent to the respondent's address of record, and I believe respondent was required to respond to the complaint within 30 days from the date of the entry of the complaint. Despite this, respondent did not submit a reply during the proceedings at SOA. Also, during this time, a default hearing was set for October 30th, 2023, and respondent was notified of the default hearing and required to appear at the default hearing. Despite this, respondent did not appear at the default hearing, and as a result, the administrative law judge entered the default order against respondent, and respondent failed to file a motion to set aside the default order within 10 days of entry of the order. On January 8th, 2024, notice of today's hearing was sent to respondent's address of record as required by the Texas Government Code, RCP Act, and board rules, which stated the date and time of today's hearing. Despite this, respondent has not responded to the notice of today's hearing. As a result, board staff requests that you, the board, vote on and approve the default order presented to you. Thank you.
All right, and at this time, Mr. Barrientos, are you on the meeting? And if so, would you like to make a statement? And GC staff, we actually can't see the list of attendees. If you wouldn't mind viewing that and verifying whether Mr. Barrientos is in the meeting.
I do not see anyone listed by that name or anything close to that name.
Okay, thank you. So with that, board, if you'd like to make a vote to approve the default order as offered by staff, you could do that, or you could call for discussion or make a different motion if that is what the board would like.
I move to approve the default order as placed by staff.
A second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the default order as determined by staff on 17A, which is Jorge Barrientos, seconded by Ms. Parker. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, motion passes.
All right, and the next one you have before you is Mr. Benjamin Eric Caldwell. Mr. O'Day, if you would like to present the matter for board staff, please.
Sure. We are here today to discuss this default order as well that was entered against respondent by the State Office of Administrative Hearings Administrative Law Judge. On August 15th, 2023, board staff filed the complaint at SOA alleging that the respondent was arrested and convicted of driving while intoxicated third or more, which is a third-degree felony. And respondent also failed to respond to the board's requests for information. Notice of the complaint was sent to respondent's address of record, and I believe respondent was also required to respond to the complaint within 30 days from the date of the entry of the complaint. And despite this, respondent did not submit a reply during the proceedings at SOA. This case was also presented at a default hearing, which was also set for October 30th, 2023. And respondent was notified of the default hearing and required to appear at that default hearing as well. Despite this, respondent did not appear at the default hearing, and as a result, the SOA judge entered a default order against respondent. Despite the entry of the order, respondent did not file a motion to set aside the default order. On January 8th, 2024, notice of today's hearing was sent to respondent's address of record as required by the Texas Government Code, RCP Act, and board rules, which said that the date and time of today's hearing. Despite this, respondent has not responded to the notice of today's hearing. As a result, board staff requests that you, the board, vote on and approve the default order presented to you. Thank you.
All right, and thank you, Mr. O'Day. Mr. Harwell, are you on the call or meeting? And if so, would you like to make a statement or presentation? All right, does not appear that he is present. Looking to verification for folks who can see the attendees.
I do not see him listed.
Okay, all right. So board, if you would like to make a vote on approval of the default order as offered or another motion as you would deem appropriate.
I would like to move that we accept the default order as presented by staff.
I second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion to accept the determination of default order as presented by staff, made by Mr. Morton, seconded by Ms. Cisniega. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, the motion passes.
All right. You have no PFDs today.
Okay, we will go back since Ms. Lutz is here and cover agenda item number 15B, the cases assigned to Ms. Lutz.
All right, Ms.
You're on mute. Oh my.
All right. You might want to call in if you're unable to get any outward audio. I know you had that issue earlier today. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, if you can just call in, then
All right. Maybe we'll circle back as they
circle
say.
back again. Third time would be a charm.
Yeah.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Hey.
okay.
Okay. All right, Ms. Lutz.
Sorry about that. I do not want to pull my files. I make a motion to accept the dismissals as assigned to me in section 15.3.
I second.
Very good. We have a motion to accept the recommendations on the cases assigned to Ms. Lutz for dismissal. Motion made by Ms. Lutz, seconded by Ms. Parker. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, motion passes. All right, we will, thank you. We will move back to item number 18, proposal for decision. There are none. Item number 19, MRTR, there are none. Item number 20, agreed orders.
You do have board 3 proposed agreed orders in front of you. If you would like to discuss, you can do that. Otherwise, if you'd like to adopt the orders, you would need a vote to do so.
I would like to move that we adopt the orders as presented by staff.
Second.
And we do not need individual motions on this, correct? We can do this as a group?
Correct, yes.
Okay, perfect. So we have a motion by Ms. Landreth to accept, was it by Mr.
Ms.
Moore?
Moore,
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. We have a motion by Mr. Moran to accept the agreed orders under item number 20. There are 3 of them, and the motion was seconded by Ms. Landreth. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, the motion to accept the agreed orders passes. All right, moving on to item number 21, remedial plans.
And board, you have one proposed remedial plan in front of you for your approval. If you would like to approve it, you would need a vote to do so.
I will move to approve the remedial plan.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion to approve the remedial plan by Ms. Landreth, seconded by Mr. Moran. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? All right, the motion passes. Item number 22, mediated settlement orders, there are none. Item number 23, non-pro-tunc orders, none. Item number 24, cease and desist orders, none. Item number 25, agreed resolutions, none. Item number 26, consent orders.
And you do have 2 consent orders in front of you for your consideration. If you would like to approve them, you would need a vote to do so.
I move to approve the 3 consent orders.
I'll second the motion.
All right, let me confirm, are there 2 or 3?
Yeah. Let me check really quickly.
But there's 3 listed.
Okay.
Or maybe, I think 3, right? Or maybe the last, there's 2. There's 2, my apologies.
Yeah, it believes there are 2, sorry, there are 2 consent orders in for your consideration, and then a warning letter just in there to for your information, noting that this was offered by our pre-investigations team. Apologies.
All right, so we have a motion by Dr. Beckman to approve the 2 consent orders and seconded by Mr. Moran. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, the motion passes. Next is report C&D orders by Executive Director.
And you'll see there is a cease and desist report in there. It's a little bit more exciting than September because we've had a little bit more time since the fiscal year began on September 1st. This report, as well as the other reports, cover all of the items for all of our boards, but it does note the license type in there. There was one NCR cease and desist order that was issued on January 23rd.
All right, thank you. Then we will move on to report automatic orders actions.
And you also have this report in there. This, similar to the other report, covers all of our license types. There is one MRT action that's listed in there that was taken on September 7th.
Any discussion? All right, very good. Moving on to item number 29, proposed rule amendments. There are none. Item number 30, adoption of rule amendments. There are none. Item number 31, open forum public comments.
Oh, I'm not. Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you, Amy. I was getting ready to jump in for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, if there's anybody from the public that is in attendance at the meeting at this time, if you would like to make any public comments, please raise your hand and you will be called on. There's no one physically present in the meeting here.
And if you are only on the telephone, you can just shout out and we will give you your 3 minutes. We'll give just another minute or 2, Amy, and then and Dr. Khan, and then I think we can move on.
All right. And seeing no volunteers to make public comments, Dr. Khan, I believe you're clear to move on to the next one.
All right, well, we'll move on to item number 32, which is approval of the September 22, 2023 board meeting minutes.
And in order to resolve this item, you would need a vote.
Yes. So if we can just review the minutes, and then I'll need a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
I'll
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve the minutes from the Texas Medical Radiologic Technology Board meeting of September 22, 2023 by Dr. Beckman, seconded by Ms. Landreth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so the minutes are approved, and that takes us to item number 33, which is a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
All right, very good. We have a motion to adjourn made by Ms. Parker and seconded by Dr. Beckman. I don't think any further discussion is needed. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, the motion passes. The meeting of the Texas Board of Medical Radiologic Technology is hereby closed. It is 11:54 a.m. on February 2, 2024. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.